Hello, and welcome to my video on the January 2019 Regents, question number 13. In this problem, we have the function f of x equals a cosine bx plus c is plotted on the graph below, and we see the graph. Then we are asked, what are the values of a, b, and c? Now you have to remember that each part of your equation here, the a, the b in front of the x, and the c over here, represent different aspects of our graph. So I'm going to start first with the c, and if you recall that c, which is being added to the cosine function, that should equate to the midline of our cosine graph. And so the midline is that line which goes horizontally directly through the middle of our graph. Now, if we look at the highest and lowest points of our graph, the highest of our graph is here at 5, and the lowest of our graph is happening here at 1. So the midline is right over here, right in the middle between 5 and 1, which is at 3. So the midline is 3, and so C has to be equal to 3. Now, because of that, we can eliminate some choices here. Choice 2, midline is not 1, and choice 3, the midline is not 5. So now the next thing I'm going to look at with the graph is the number in front of the cosine, the a. And so you have to remember that the absolute value of a is our amplitude. And the amplitude tells us, in particular, how far do we have to go from the midline up to the highest point or to the lowest point. And knowing the midline is at y equals to 3, if we look at the distance from there to the highest point, hopefully you would agree that distance is 2. And from the midline to the lowest point, again, that distance here is 2. So the amplitude in this problem should be equal to 2, which means that the answer to this problem has to be choice 1. It can't be choice 4 because they're saying the amplitude is 4. No good. Now, we have the answer, but just in case, if you want to continue listening, I'm going to refer to what the value of b represents and how you can get that from the graph. Remember that one of the aspects that we looked at with our graphs of our sine and cosine functions is the period, and the period is how long it takes to complete one full cycle of our graph. So in this problem, if we go from a high point to a high point, the distance in between those 2 points, which in this case would be pi over 3, that would be equal to our period in the problem. Now, how this helps us find the value of b, well, if you remember, the period and the frequency are tied together. And that b value is what we refer to as the frequency of our graph. And they are basically intertwined. They are related to each other. And so the frequency can be found by taking 2 pi and dividing it by the period. And so with the period being equal to pi over 3, if we take 2 pi, put that over pi over 3, and if you want to use your calculator to simplify this, you could. The pi's are going to cancel. You could put a 1 in front of this pi here and take 2 and divide it by 1/3 to get the answer. But the other way to do this manually, since 2 pi is being divided by this fraction of pi over 3, we could get the answer by taking 2 pi and multiplying by the reciprocal of pi over 3, which is 3 over pi. And when we multiply this out, the pi's will cancel, and 2 times 3 gives us 6. And that's why the b value is 6. That coincides with the answer choice that we see in choice number 1. So I hope overall this video helped you out. Good luck with all your studies, and thanks for watching. Take care.